two starting points in two locations on the East Coast and the West Coast, but also two different mediums which are beginning to flow into each other. This one actually started out thinking about enclosures in the sort of Black Hills of the Canary Islands. And it was originally a very hot, quite dark painting, but I wasn't happy with it. When I came back from Ireland, I looked at it again and I could see parallels with the sort of scattered islands and fragments of rocks, fragments of history, echoing what I'd done before. And that this is something that often happens in my paintings. Things sort of recur, memories float to the surface from other times and other places. And so in this instance, I literally just painted out the sort of warm blue, everything about painting apart from these isolated, scattered elements. And then just poured paint right through it, both vertically and horizontally. They also referred to the drawings, some of which you can see here, the one on the right. One of the drawings I did while I was in County Mayo doing this residency at the Planning Arts Foundation. And I go out every day. They gave me the studio, which is very generous of them. I didn't actually use it at all, so I just wanted to be outside. And that's the way I've always worked in East Anglia, in Langley. I call my studio Under the Sky, and that's in a sense what I wanted to continue in Ireland, which of course is a very different proposition because the weather is wild and tempestuous there, and so is the landscape, unlike the flat East Anglian plains, marshes, creeks. There you've got this very ancient, very rugged landscape of mountains, bogs, and buried within it these extraordinary nameless things, really. They might be stone walls that have been fashioned out of old burial mounds or burial sites or hermitages, or going way back, stones used to create enclosures by the first Neolithic settlers there about 3000 BC. These stones have been knocking around, but while they remain mute and silent, I see them as sort of carriers of silent, now largely forgotten stories and histories and past. I found a board that I could just get under my arm and carry out across the fields and sit or stand for a couple of hours just working in crayon and pigment, inks and rainwater. There'd be moments which you don't get on the East Coast that you do in the West, where it'd be blinding sunshine one minute and then the next minute absolutely torrential downpours. These became the starting point for the paintings which were done in the studio in London, drawn from these works on paper, which are more formally structured at one level, but again are about the natural environment, the weather, history, the emergence and disappearance of memories, fragments of time floating through a turbulent space, things that seem on the verge of disappearing, but sort of glint in the light and wet and re-emerge again. So this one is called Soft Ground. This one over here, what Shanassini is referred to as the lowlands of the mind, the sort of collective memory that sits beneath the surface. And with this one, I just wanted to get this scattering, this fragmentary floating landscape of islands, rocks, stones that have come adrift from their original purpose and meaning, but which still act as containers of time, and let them run adrift in this wash paint. And I think it's very interesting what Matt and Rollo have done, combining with these two works. These works on paper are made in a different location in Essex, on the Essex coast. These are made in the studio in London. I don't often have them side by side, but it's been very evident in looking over the span of the last 2 years or so, the way in which the paintings have begun to capture some of the rawness and speed of the works on paper. So there's very, very little brushwork in these, apart from this kind of calligraphic marking, which again was something during lockdown. We spent a year doing Chinese calligraphy as something to do. It was very interesting because it affected what had been a process of automatic mark making, and gave it what Andrew Lamb, I think, described as a sort of calligraphic archaeology of painting. I think it's quite a nice way of summarising it. And then watching the movement of light across this visual field, which is something I've been doing regularly for over 15 years now, and revisiting the same space over and over and over again, but always encountering something different. The sheets of paper are wet originally, often wetted with water from a rising tide, because I work right there on the waterfront. And the paper itself dries at varying rates, where the paper is more saturated, in this case, quite deliberately with stripes of water run down, that when I pour ink across it, captures and disperses the inks. Where the paper is dry, it just runs around it, and where there are areas of crayon and other resistant material, then it runs around it. So in that sense, the work is of a place, but it's made with the place. It is to do with the weather, how much moisture there is in the air, how much time I've got before the paper dries, because once the paper dries, there's nothing else I can do to it. There's no second chance. It's just one hit, one go. They're very much seasonal as well as day to day. This is done in the summer, but in the winter, of the same place, pretty much. One vertical, scroll-like. This one actually began life as two single sheets, but joined together, and it is of the same place, but one day apart. So one day on the left, and the next day on the right. The flow of time, not only that I was spending making it, but across the span of 2 days. So it's about keeping this tension between what's on the surface, but letting it sort of come in and out of focus. So you don't quite know where you are in relation to it, and you're looking at it across it. That's the magic. So I think it's been a sort of slow mastery of those elements. But I also think, as Andrew pointed out, that the scene work next to Bridget Riley's work last year was quite interesting, because I could see there was a sort of loose formal structure in it. And in fact, it needs a certain kind of formal structure. In this one, sort of syncopation of vertical lines that runs across it to give it a sort of rhythm. But then allow these flowing horizontal drifting shapes to sit within that, a sort of tension between them. These ones can only work once in one go, so, and I wanted that the risk of it is what makes it interesting. These three, same place in London here, memories of how many times I've done this before, so I take out a lot now. To me is extraneous, unnecessary, and just let them flow free as images. The two on the left, in the middle of the summer, a day apart, and the one on the right is done in the autumn. So you can see the same emergent shapes floating through them. The bay itself, it reputedly has an island for every day of the year. It's a magical space, and sort of full of figures as well. It's sort of, you see Croagh Patrick in the distance, and you've got Neffin behind you, which is Gaelic for heavenly sanctuary. And you get the sense of sort of flowing history, myths and stories, but also again deep time, because these formations, these islands were formed after the last ice age and through glacial action, and have formed these tiny scattered archipelago of islands, which appear and disappear, both in the tides and in the weather, of course. So when I was first up there, I did some long lines of drawings, just trying to capture, as much as anything else, the movement of weather across the passage of the day. So, I mean, this was sort of blue skies in the middle of the day, particularly towards twilight over here, sort of more restful space. And within, again, these vertical bands, this sort of loose grid, allowing these shapes to weave in and out of this elemental space. Ultimately, done with great speed, just allowing paint to run vertically. I paint them all on the floor, and I just kept them up, pour pigment, and let it run through everything that's there. So that's been interesting. That's one of the last cases that I've done for some time. To see it unfold, not like 2 days side by side there, as passages, different passages of time connect through this flare of memories and histories and of a particular place without being too precisely descriptive of it, I should say.